Hey there, independent supporters. I figure I better do another video and get this cleared up. Every few weeks, it seems, my inbox will be inundated with the latest theory from some people spreading around and sharing as to why a province doesn't need to go through a referendum process in order to become independent. These are usually poorly founded notions, conspiracies. I know people get upset when these things are dismissed as such, or even well-meaning things, but just misinterpretations of what the Constitution is or how it stands. And look, if we want independence, and I know I do, we have a path, and there's only one way. It's through, I mean, I'm talking one way legally, ethically, morally, and effectively. And that's through the Clarity Act with a referendum among everybody in the province. That's it. There's no other way. Or at least that's the main step we got to do it. I'll talk about the moral aspect to begin with. For people who think we can just take a shortcut, bypass the province of taking it to all Albertans or Saskatchewan citizens, I don't believe we have the right to leave without getting a clear majority consent from the people. That's the ethical part. If we can't get 55, 60% of the people to say, yes, I want to leave, we don't deserve to leave. We shouldn't have the right to. I do believe in democracy. And we were given the ability through the Clarity Act to do it with a clear referendum. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, the steps to getting that referendum, and I'll go through a little bit at the end of this, what we got to do to follow that path on what we've been given through provincial laws and the federal one. But I want to name, some of these common things that have been sent to me. There was a video made called Canada the Illusion. This one, I watched it, and it goes through again, and just kind of a winding road of weird interpretation of everything from the BNA Act to even that starts at the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, basically concludes that Canada was never actually properly formed as a country. Thus, the provinces don't even exist as provinces and don't even really need to assert their independence. They already are. Guys, it's a bunch of baloney. It's funny, he mentioned in that a member of parliament from the past, an older one from Alberta named Walter Cool. And the term that they got applied to these folks as they brought this stuff up, and this is back in the 30s when this stuff started, as a pseudo-legal, which means it's an untrue legal interpretation of things. And that was him, Cool, and others were the founding that led to, some people might remember from the 90s, the D-tax movement. That was a movement that said that if you don't actually sign into the taxation system, you don't have to take part in it, and you're exempt from income taxes and things like that. And Eldon Warman was pushing that in Alberta through the 90s. A lot of people got heavily fined and lost a whole lot of money by believing that bunch of bullshit. Don't fall for this stuff, guys. And again, even so that people genuinely mean it, we are in a system that's recognized, that's in place. Whether you respect the legitimacy of the system or not, it is the system that's in power. And things like the D-tax movement, yeah, you could lose your house through it. You could be bankrupted through it, but you're not going to get free through it. And that D-tax movement actually evolved into that Freeman on the land concept. Again, kind of a subgroup of people who believe that if I don't consent to be a part of this organized government world, then I'm actually a sovereign individual and your laws don't apply to me. People end up in jail thinking that. It doesn't work that way, guys. It just doesn't. And it's a distraction, and it shortcuts. It doesn't shortcut anything, and it hurts the movement in a couple of ways. I mean, the first way I'll start with, it takes, and actually I should talk about the other one that's just come out, the one that kind of prompted this. It came in my email box. It's been spread all around with somebody else putting in a declaration of sovereignty. And I guess her interpretation is that, again, that the Clarity Act isn't valid, and that if we just all put this declaration of sovereignty to the United Nations, that actually that's how we'll go, and perhaps we'll have a referendum, but not through the Clarity Act, and it doesn't count. You're just making stuff up, guys. And it's not helping. I heard, I guess, another one, a guy is proposing, he feels if 75% of people fill out a document of that sort and use DocuSign to legitimize it, rather than a paper petition, 75% of the population, and they get that to the UN, then Alberta will be independent. I don't know where you guys get this stuff. Not to mention along a whole lot of the scams and everything. This has been the latest one with all these, those phishing emails you get all the time. They're always talking about, can you sign this DocuSign thing? Can you sign this DocuSign thing? You're not going to get 75% of Albertans put their name to it. It's not going to make a damn difference. Let's get real here, guys. So this takes effort. The movement has to be grassroots. I keep saying that. It has to be us moving on the ground to make that tipping point of independence and to winning a referendum. We all, within each one of ourselves, have a limited amount of resources, whether it's the mental time we can dedicate to it, the emotion we can dedicate to it. Some people, it's the money they can dedicate to it, or the time they can dedicate to it, because it's going to take all of those from people of different amounts, depending on what a person can or is willing to contribute to get there. And if you're taking a bunch of those resources, those personal resources, and dedicating them to these mythological bypasses to the independence process, those are resources being taken away from the legitimate process for us to get there. And it makes it that much harder. The other part is it costs credibility. I mean, some of this stuff, I'm sorry, but you sound like a bunch of kooks. We need to win the majority of the province. And that means being rational. We have the mechanism. Let's quit pretending there isn't. Most countries in the world do not have a mechanism to allow a province or a state to separate through a referendum. We're fortunate enough with that. And the Clarity Act is valid. And it's a means to get out there. I mean, think of the credibility loss. For example, it was frustrating for the truckers' convoy supporters when they were out there in Ottawa and they were making their protest and they were rational about things and they were peaceful. And then these kooks came up with this memorandum of understanding and put it out where they felt that somehow they could demand that the Governor General and the Senate could fire the Prime Minister and override it, and they could basically take over the government. This was just a minority within their group. This wasn't the group itself. That's part of the problem when you get decentralized leadership. But of course, the opponents to the convoy use that to point at everybody and say, look, they're a bunch of crackpots. Or look, they're trying to take over the government. They're seditionists. You can't let the message get diluted and distracted with these things. That's why, and again, I don't trust everything that comes from the federal government or their motivations. And I know the federal government doesn't want to encourage or allow the independence of a province to happen. But that's why they brought about the Clarity Act. I mean, the Clarity Act was actually a boon to us. It was good. For those, I'm going to read this. Hey, it's in my book. I'll talk about plugging that in a minute. But I wrote about this in the book with the Clarity Act from the 90s of the Quebec referendum where they came within 1%. The reason they formed the Clarity Act is this was the question that Quebec asked in their referendum. Just translated to English, of course. Here's the question. Do you agree that Quebec should become sovereign after having made a formal offer to Canada for a new economic and political partnership within the scope of the bill, respecting the future of Quebec and of the agreement signed on June 12, 1995? That word salad was the question. What the hell does that mean? For most people, it meant full independence. For some, it didn't. There was ambiguity. There was questioning. Had it even been a 60% yes vote, I'm sure it would still be being fought in the courts today if we're not sure. So the Clarity Act was made to say, okay, next time, it's going to be a next time, there is a mechanism for citizens to vote to secede from the Federation, but it has to be a clear question. Good, and it should be. Alberta can't put a bunch of crap like that out, or Saskatchewan or BC. Our question's got to be pretty clear. The APP one doesn't look too bad. That might be the way to go. Who knows? But it's got to be basically in or out. Full independence or stay. You can't have a bunch of other things. But we need to be clear on these things. So getting to what our steps are. Again, don't let yourself get sidetracked to these unilateral declarations of sovereignty and applying to the UN, or that we aren't actually a country, or Canada's a corporation, or all that hogwash. Guys, the reality is anyways that the vast majority of Albertans feel and recognize that they are a part of the Federation right now. And that perception is sort of reality when it comes to that. So maybe even legally, technically, in some rabbit hole of thought, you're correct that there's not an actual federation. The reality is, as long as the majority of the citizens feel there is, there is. That's sort of how it goes. So we got to deal with it with the mechanisms we have. And we have it. Premier Smith, let's go through the steps of what we have to do, because a lot of people are confused about that too. Hey, I signed 2 petitions for this. No, you didn't. Actually, you got data mined. And again, perhaps it was for the right cause. I don't know. But there's all sorts of groups, the weird Republican Party. There's the Alberta Prosperity Project, who are genuine, but they're collecting information. Every other group. These aren't petition signatures, guys. These are just putting your name into a database for if and when the petition time comes. So we don't even have the ability to fully initiate an independence referendum petition yet. Bill 54 has to get royal assent, the mechanism has to be put in place, and that law has to be brought into force. Shouldn't be too long, but that has to be done. Then the process can begin. Then you can start the application. I know Fabio Lukasic went and did his thing at the office, his performative thing, saying he's going to have a referendum petition as well. Fine, whatever, piss around. That's because there is the old Referendum Act is still on the books, so you can play within that, but it's an impossible bar. We have to wait for 54 to pass to bring it to that reasonable level. That reasonable level is now 10% that Premier Smith brought in. You need to get a petition or a referendum going. You need the signatures of 10% of those who voted in the last election, and you have 120 days to do it. Once an application is in on a question, once it's approved by Elections Alberta, if they feel that's an appropriate one to put to the people, a petition form will be issued, a formal one. You can't make a different one. You can't do anything else. It will have the question on it, and people will have to physically sign it. 177,000 signatures will be required, and they'll have to put their name, their address, their phone number, and they'll have to be witnessed. There's not going to be any online petitions. There's not going to be any DocuSigns, nothing like that. Physically on a piece of paper. It can be done. It's going to take thousands of volunteers, a lot of time and a lot of hard work, but it can be done. We can't forget what it is. And when they say 177,000, the number is really actually 200,000, because a bunch of those are not going to be valid. Whether it's a person who can't prove Alberta residency, or they put the wrong address, or their name was illegible on the paper. I always have trouble with that word. So let's just go through this progression of steps, right? We get the question, we get the application. Hopefully the groups have all solidified and most of the people agree on the question. The petition papers are out there. You hit the ground. Now you've got 4 months to get those in and get them back and get them checked and get them stamped and approved. And if all of that is done correctly, a referendum will be triggered. And it doesn't happen overnight either. Then the government will decide when it's going to be scheduled. Premier Smith has made it sound like that if it happens, it'll happen sometime in 2026. I'm guessing spring of 2026, maybe fall even, but it'll be a little while. Some people saying, oh, we got to hold the referendum this fall with the municipal elections in Alberta. Well, that'd be a great way to kill it, because it's way too soon. The support isn't there. The base isn't there. Just kind of, I know I'm impatient too. I want out. I want independence. That's why I'm so concerned about this. That's why I'm doing these videos, because we have to do it right. We don't get opportunities like this very often. We don't get the atmosphere for it. We don't have the mechanism to do it. We have both of those right now, but we've got to get it right. Laser focus, guys. Laser focus. The only way out is a yes vote on a clear question with a clear majority in a referendum. Don't get pulled down the rabbit holes of all these theories that just distract from the movement, take away credibility from the movement, and take your precious time and thought away from the goal we have to accomplish. That we have the one and only way to do it. So again, maybe the people coming up with these alternatives, I'm sure most of them are very genuine, well-meaning. They believe their own interpretation of the law is good for them. But it's not correct. And it's not doing the movement any favors. And you're not doing the movement any favors when you share those things. So please, let's just stay focused on things. We've got to get out. We've got the means. We're going great. We got some fantastic people. We got meetings coming. I'm going to one in Regina now in a week and 10 days from now. I'm looking forward to that. Get in front of a Saskatchewan crowd at a rally and discuss this, because Saskatchewan needs to go too. And the atmosphere is right. The time is here. Carney is going to be our best ally for getting us over that tipping point to full independence. But we got to watch it, guys. Keep your eye on the ball. Don't let things get pulled away, sidetracked, distracted, and blown up. There's nobody worse to break themselves up than independent supporters. Again, one more time I got to plug. Well, not one more. I'm going to do it in every video. The Sovereigntist Handbook. I covered these things. And, and more. You don't have to get the book. I'm going to cover it all in these video series over time as things go along. But if you can get the book, by all means, grab a copy of it. It helps you get better grounded to make the case for independence so we can reach that tipping point of a winning referendum. So thanks for tuning into this video. Watch for the next one, and just watch it out there, guys. There's just a whole lot of side tracks and paths and everything you could go on that are going to distract you from what the real goal is. And I just want to stop you from getting on those before you get too far. Because there's no shortcut, guys. The only way out is in a referenda, and we got the means, and we can do it. We're going to do it. Don't let the other folks divide us up and pull us down some of the crazy train routes. It's not going to help.